Ladies and gentlemen, Big Hairy News.
Hey, kia ora koutou te whānau. Welcome to another edition of Big Hairy News. Kia ora Chewie, how you love?
Kia ora, Pat. I am well.
Everything going on? I've just had I've seen a message go past the chat that apparently Pat's going to get roasted in the chat tonight. Don't know what I've done, but apparently there's some shenanigans going on.
Oh, you know what you've done.
You know what
You know what you've done.
So tonight, bunch of stuff to talk about in the show tonight. We won't beat around the bush because we've actually pulled a couple of other stories in, like the Aratiri, which are not in the show notes. Also, Luxon Flakes banning prisoners voting. The ACT Party being joyous of that, even though I thought everyone was supposed to be the same under the law, but apparently that's not so much. Those people can be treated differently under the law, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. Is there anything you want to say or get out there, Chewie, before we actually get into the show? Because we might as well just rip.
Yeah, I'd like to chuck in the story, maybe not right off the top of the bat, but have you seen that our Human Rights Commissioner has said that there's... You've got that? You've got that. See, why do I... This is why I don't read the news anymore, because Pat will tell me what the news is.
Yep, no, I've got the footage on that as well. So like I said, there's a couple of extra things as well that we'll drop in there. I'm getting roasted for being late. Okay. All right. I see how it is. All right. All right. Tomorrow night we'll start at 5 to 9 and we'll do a big giveaway at the start of the show and you'll all miss it. Well, we'll see. All right. Okay. Yeah. So there's a couple of extra things going on tonight, which will news stories we're trying to advertise, but there's two of them that we've just talked about as well. Like there could have been a third one on Morning Report this morning. Former emergency department head is warning that cutting ICU beds at the Dunedin Hospital could cost lives. Former head of Dunedin's emergency department and former Southern District Health Board member Dr. John Campbell spoke to Ingrid Hipkiss. So I could have done that as well, but maybe we'll re-look at that tomorrow night, because tomorrow, being May Day, 1st of May, is perhaps a really important day in the New Zealand health system for the actions that senior doctors are taking, which I don't know if it's unheard of, but it's certainly incredibly rare to have a 24-hour strike. And Dr. Gary Payinda is obviously going to be involved with it. We're going to bring Gary in now. He's going to talk to us a bit about what the strike's all about, and then we'll actually get Gary back tomorrow night to tell us about how the day went with that strike. Cool. So let's welcome to the show right now, Dr. Gary Payinda. Hey man, how you doing?
Hey guys, how's it?
Yeah, going very well. Yeah, like you and I talked about having a bit of a touch base tonight. We don't have to zip through this quickly. We can take as long as we want on the conversation, but I thought it would be good to to set up the scene before the strike, which starts in 3 hours technically. Because last night there was people who were putting messages on in our chats telling us about events that were happening tomorrow, and we kind of thought, well, let's let the punters watching now continue that, so people tell us about where things are going, and let's talk to someone who's involved with it to find out a bit more about what we can expect. So why don't we just start with reminding us all why our senior doctors and others now, I think some nurses have joined in, striking tomorrow.
We're striking essentially because when one contract ends, you negotiate for the next one. And you try to negotiate decent salaries. You try to negotiate decent, essentially the working conditions you're under. And you may have heard there's some problems in healthcare over the past 18 months or so. Well, there have been problems for a long time, but fuel has been put on the fire, and the problems have accelerated quite unsustainably. And so during these contract negotiations, our union, the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists, which for regular folks just means salaried public hospital doctors, right?
Okay.
This has nothing to do with people who work out in private. This is only essentially, and it doesn't have anything directly to do with primary care and GPs, although realistically we're all tied together by the same common problems.
Mhm.
But this strike is for the public hospital doctors to say, hey, there are problems with staffing. There are problems with nurse staffing, with doctor staffing. So among the doctor thing is that on average, 1 in 6 New Zealand doctors is missing in the public system. And they're not lost, they're just not hired. And it means that if the average is 16, you have to understand that some departments and some hospitals, the doctors are working with 40% understaffing in their department. And I don't know, like if you need to service a certain number of patients or do a certain number of surgeries or endoscopies or treat a certain number of emergency patients, and you're 20, 30, 40% down, you need that problem fixed. There's no magical way around this. The problem needs to be fixed. And
hey Gary, a question. How do you fix it? Like, I mean, you can't magic up 5,000 doctors tomorrow, but so like question, how do you fix that shortfall?
So where do you think these doctors are, Pat? I'll give you one guess, and it's far west of these islands.
Yeah.
Right. For years, doctors have been able to get certified and registered in Australia and fly over there. With a 4-hour flight, you've got 40% better pay.
Mm-hmm.
But let's not focus on just the pay, although that is pretty important for many people. It's also working conditions. When you have enough junior doctors, enough trainees in the scheme, it makes a huge difference. When you have enough nurses hired, it makes an immeasurable difference to the practice of medicine when the things that need doing for patients actually get done rather than neglected. So there's a host of working conditions that need to be better. You're saying, where do we magic up these doctors? Pat, if we didn't hemorrhage doctors and nurses so badly, we wouldn't need to magic them up. If the pay is not competitive, if the working conditions are sometimes atrocious and frequently understaffed, it's no big mystery as to what needs to be fixed. If you make the job attractive for people, they will stay. You will get all of those doctors back from Australia. I'll just give nurses as a good example because I spend a lot of time with them. The young ones are escaping to Australia because they do not see hope in a system where at their last, so there's some fascinating things going on. They had a pay equity that probably took the better part of a decade to get sorted, right? We have Holidays Act pay that is just getting sorted now that dates back, I don't know, something like 10 years. You've got, again, understaffing and just a lot of pressure, obviously, both inflicted from our own need to want to do a good job by patients and also from management from above, to work harder and faster with less and less resource. Less and less resource relative to the need and the demand. So the young nurses are leaving for Australia because they say, why would I put up with this when I have a better alternative and I can make 20, 30% more for an easier, better staffed job. But then the older ones are saying, why am I putting up with this anymore? I was going to work for another 5 years, but it's just not worth it now. So there's been a lot of turnover and obviously burnout is quite endemic. We've been talking about burnout for ages, but the reality is you push people only so hard for so long. Like there's only so many additional shifts that anyone wants to do. You're already working whatever you're rostered to work. and then you're getting texts literally every couple of days begging you to come in. And of course you can say no. And this is to cover vacancies, staff absences, sicknesses, just roster gaps in the schedule. And you can say no, but you know that when you say no, the person who's stuck there tonight is screwed. They're going to have a really bad night. Your colleagues remaining will have a bad night. The patients there will have longer waits. That's not anything that we want to see. So getting back to your question, why do we strike? For all those reasons. What is the answer? Stop pushing people away. So right now, you've a perfect example. One more little reason of where doctors are going. What do you think happens when you tell doctors that you're putting tens of millions of dollars into 10,579 surgical cases being done in private? So you're outsourcing these to private. Now, the public doctors, some of them, not all, but some of them have said, we can do some of those on extra shifts on Saturday lists to get cranked through. Government wouldn't come up with the money to hire the nurses to run the extra theaters on the weekend, but they're happy to outsource tens of millions of dollars. When you know that as I've told you before on the show, the outsourced cases are not the sickest, most needy, most desperately long waiting patients. Yeah. They are the cream skimmed off the top. The cherry picking that goes on is real, because they're only going to take the cleanest, most profitable, and simplest cases. Yeah. And when you offer these doctors and nurses and anesthetists the opportunity to go in private, make more money doing easier cases, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go where the money is and where they're needed, and they're not going to come back. So when you pull people out into the private sector, it's not like if a surgeon ends up doing 40 cases this year in private, it's not like they're just going to up sticks and just come back to doing more public. It's often, for many, a one-way path. And the really tragedy is that we've got young doctors who are amazingly good, I'm just thinking of some surgical specialists at the minute, who have left practice in the public system to go out to private. So we're incentivizing the destruction and the collapse of the public health sector, and the outsourcing of health. And I don't think it's accidental. I think there's a real push to privatize things because, it's very profitable. As I've told you before, if you want to invest in something good, buy yourself a surgical center, a private radiology group. Yeah. You guys are killing it on the show, aren't you?
Yeah, man. Something like that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, patrons. We'll get into that business next. It'll be our side hustle. Hey, question actually as well is, you're talking about the solutions, right? If you could wave your magic wand and get all the funding needed to make those things happen, I mean, do you have any idea how long would it take to get the health system kind of back to where it should be with those extra doctors and nurses? Is it like another decade plan to catch up again?
No, I think it would be less than a decade. So to train a doctor de novo, from the time you graduate high school, let's say at 18, till you're about 32 years old, that's how long it takes to train a specialist. Yeah. And so, it's a bit unrealistic to think you're going to start a new med school and start training people and blah, blah, blah. And then, in 14 years, be able to reap the benefit of that. It's much wiser to ask yourself why we are losing so many doctors that were already trained and we're already here and working here. Kiwi doctors, immigrant doctors, whatever, you name it. Why aren't they staying? Why are they going to Australia or into private? That could be fixed. I'm not going to say tomorrow. I don't want to exaggerate that much, but that could be fixed within a year.
Yeah, the legislation could be passed to fix that problem immediately. Yeah, there might be a tail of putting it in place, but yeah, they could make
absolutely,
a legislative change.
You could drive people back into or entice people back into the public sector. Look, David Bailey, an obstetrician gynecologist from Whangarei Hospital, said that he was able to do Saturday lists with some of his colleagues to catch up on women who've been waiting, some of whom have been waiting for over a year for pelvic surgery, just typically with pain and bleeding. And he was given the runaround, and and the decision was made instead to outsource those. And that could be turned around tomorrow. That is a volitional thing. That is a choice. It's a choice someone's making. And you said, if I could wave a magic wand, I don't need to wave a magic wand. I could just ask that the $3 billion in tax cuts for property investors, I won't even be so aggressive as to say reverse it. Just reverse it for the people that have 10 or more rental properties, and just funnel that money back where it ought to be, into essential public services. And if you did that, you could correct the entire GP and hospital specialist shortage, and all the nurse shortage immediately. If you reverse that 2.9 billion that was given to landlords, you could reverse all the doctor and nurse shortages and pay for free public dental care for the whole country. That's how much money $2.9 billion is. Like, we talk about 16 billion as the finance minister said she's going to cut another billion from the budget. These are enormous numbers. And I did want to say one thing about the strike that I forgot to say a few minutes ago, is that there's the most amazing line in it. I think it's one of like the 3 demands, and one is like better pay or better working hours or whatever, but the third demand is just brilliant. I'm really proud of the people, whoever the leadership group is that is like drafting these things. They just said one of our requests is that for every % that we are understaffed, that the remaining doctors on that shift get that percentage. So if you're doing the work currently, like in the country, we're down, I think, an average of I believe it's 16%. So you would get 1.16 because you're doing the work of 1.16 doctors, or 1.4 if you're really in a horribly understaffed situation, like some of my psychiatry colleagues around the country are. Basically, it's brilliant. It just says, let there actually be some financial recognition that we are are expected to do the work of more than one human. Like, that's just the reality of it, is that you expand to fill the gap. And it's real. When you hear, again, this is a separate thing, but like GPs putting in a couple of hours after their shift, doing their paperwork and their other stuff, it's real. When you hear doctors like in my system, in the hospital specialist system, doing the work to cover their own job and someone else's, or part of someone else's, it's real. So this is the first time I've ever seen that in a contract. And I think it's incredible. Now, of course, like, is this going to happen? Are we going to win? Who knows? Probably not. Probably it'll all fall on deaf ears and we'll be crushed. But at least we are trying. And this idea is wonderful, because money is not the be all end all for me. I would not be in New Zealand if money was the most important thing. But the understaffing issues for me are really important. And even more than the doctor understaffing, for me, it's the nurse understaffing that means I can't get the care for my patients that I want. It's not nice to have people in a waiting room for 4 hours. You're unable to see them because you've got 30 patients in the ED. The waiting room is full with another 30 patients, and bad things are happening out there when patients, elderly patients with abdominal pain and chest pain, are waiting for hours. And that's not always, I don't want to exaggerate, but it's frequent enough. Like if you just look at the numbers for how often your local ED is in code red, they got rid of the code black because I think it looked quite bad for them to admit that there was really a sort of a life-threatening, a health-threatening problem. But now we're in code red, which is the highest level, rather frequently, and it's not good. So yeah, I love this idea of one of the demands just being, hey, staff the place adequately. That's what it's what I really want. I can't speak for everyone. I'm sure there are people that are really focused on the money most of all. I would like to come and have a place that just works, where I can just do my job, do the thing I was trained to do and the thing I enjoy doing, which is emergency medicine. So yeah, that's the gist on the strike.
I'm interested. I have a question for you, which is kind of prompted from what you're saying, because you seem to be a fighter. You seem to be someone that was going to, butt up against various organizations to make it better for you and your colleagues and for patients of this country. Do you ever get to a point where you go, I can't do this anymore?
A few years ago, I think I would say yes. So doing the job full time became untenable for me and for the majority of my colleagues. So if you look at, so ED is a stressful place, right? It has unsociable hours, nights, weekends, holidays, irregular hours that mess up your body clock, and then demands that can either be really chill or the opposite of very chill, kind of horrendous at times, but always extremely worthwhile and highly worthwhile and motivating. But I realized that, especially when I had been on the district health board for a few years and wasn't able to make the kind of change that we needed to have, I just got so frustrated that I had to step away and reduce my hours. And that was the best thing in the world for me, to cut down my hours. And subsequent to that, virtually everyone in my department has reduced their hours from full-time. I'm trying to think of percentages. Let's say 70%, I'm going to guesstimate, have less than full hours. And so that means that they have less than full pay, right? Because your pay goes down significantly when you cut down your hours. Yeah. And it also means that in my remaining hours, like I still have to do the same number of unsociable hours as a full-timer would, or the same, how do I say this right? I have to do the same amount of call, like overnight call. So reducing your hours doesn't get you out of that. It just means that a higher proportion of shifts are really crummy ones. But I was happy to take that trade-off. Less money, I don't care. A higher proportion of night shifts, I don't care. I need to not be frustrated by the way things are not changing. And so that was good for me to cut back, because then I could do other things that I found value in. So I do some assisted dying work that is incredibly enriching, to be able to sit in a home with someone for a couple of hours and talk to them about the end of their life, their terminal illness, and to talk with their family. So that's been incredible. But and I still do medical direction work for a national organization and a bunch of other stuff that's medical. But reducing my hours has allowed me to preserve my mental health and reduce my frustration. But I need to speak up, because if I saw this stuff and didn't say anything, I would just feel worse. So yeah, right. I've been willing to take whatever risks of censure or worse, because the alternative of just sort of sitting silently as you watch things get worse is not acceptable to me.
Chewie, we're going to wrap up now, but I know you've just been sitting there taking it all in. We haven't even got to some of Gary's fantastic signs that are going to be on the protest tomorrow. I like this one. One Simeon Brown costs nearly as much as 2 new public surgeons. Which one helps society more? Some good ones. Hungry kids, sick patients, up surgery denials, up doctors' wait lists is stupid, wasteful, and cruel politics. They're all pretty good. Primary care needed 14%, government gave 4%, and said just bill patients more. Also, Gary, there are lots of people commenting on your TikTok saying it's good to see you doing more stuff independently, sort of thing as well. But before, and if people want to check that out, it's just Gary Payinda, Yep, Dr. Gary Payinda on TikTok. Before we head off, Chewie, you got anything you want? I know you've got a sister who works in the health system. Anything else you want to share before we let Gary go?
Yeah, my sister's a nurse down here in Otago, and it's things that she has mentioned for years now being an issue, and it's just becoming more and more and more of an issue. I've mentioned a couple of times here on the show of her receiving instruction that she needs to take some time off because her leave is too high, and then she goes, "Oh, okay, I'll take some time off." No, leave denied. We can't spare you. And it's just I can't imagine what it's like working in something so dysfunctional. I mean, as you said, I don't think people get into this for lack of a career for fame and glory. They get into it for deep, like a bone deep care for people.
Yeah.
And to be sitting there going, if I pull the pin on this, I'm letting people down. That's why they put up with it.
And in all of this, the nurses have it worse than the doctors, and the patients have it the worst of all. So the nurses, everything you said is absolutely right. The nurses were offered a less than, I think it might have been a slightly less than 1% to 1% pay rise this cycle of contract negotiations. And they said, but inflation is running 2.5% right now. We're going to get 1%. We're going to be moving backwards by 1.5%. And yet the job is getting harder, and there's a hiring freeze on, and I'm having to do the work of more nurses. Like this is wild. The doctors were offered a package that averaged 0.77% pay rise. That's less than 1% compared to inflation running at 2.5%. It's just silliness. So you will definitely see people trying to gravitate out towards other things. But I mean, you have to realize that things are tough for people in general in the rest of the professions and the rest of careers. So yeah, I'll just say one last thing. It wouldn't be so bad to have like austerity or funding problems or leaking walls, part of a ceiling caving in with the heavy rainfalls last week was interesting. All those things can be accepted. Like I didn't come here, for just pure fun and enjoyment and tons of money. I haven't stayed here for 18 years for that. But when you're told that, like, for example, IT is a huge priority, says government, we're going to fix IT. They just disestablished or moved along or fired. I just read this today. Around 1,500 IT roles. And so like 500 are disestablished, 500 are pushed elsewhere, 500, convinced to leave early. It's really amazing hypocrisy. And I think that's actually the bit that I find the most galling. Like, I do not mind tough circumstances, right? I have worked in very austere environments, but I just want honesty. I just want to be told, like, the straight up deal. I don't want to be told that doctors are Muppets that need to be put back in their box, right? That was David Seymour. Or that we're using patients as pawns, and we get paid so much and our leave is so high. This coming from a guy who, as that sign said, makes 1.67 times more than a brand new surgeon graduating at the same age. So Simeon's been out of uni for probably a decade now, right? I think he's 34 years old. A specialist is just finishing training at 32, and they're coming out with almost half as much income as one Simeon Brown. And so I would just put it out there to the public, if you could get 1.67 surgeons or one Simeon Brown, which would you pick?
Yeah. Rhetorical question of the night. goes to Dr. Gary Payinda. Also, Gary, there are several people in the chat saying your handwriting is surprisingly legible on your signs for a doctor. so that's good as well. Well done. Or did you not do it? Did you get someone else to do the handwriting?
I had some help for some of it. Yeah.
We look forward to hearing from you tomorrow night. And if you've got any, I think we've talked about if you've got any footage or anything like that you want to send through early, and we can get some stuff out there as well. Best of luck for tomorrow. Do you know? I mean, like you're in Whangarei area. Tell people in that area where they need to go, because we've been hearing from people who want to go along and support the doctors and now nurses as well. What are the actions that you know about?
So the doctors are striking tomorrow. That's one thing, starting at midnight, actually tonight for 24 hours, which is the first time ever. I think it's maybe only the second time that the salaried doctors, public hospital doctors have striked. It's very unpleasant. But there will also be a PSA rally. And so pretty much outside every public hospital, your public hospital doctors should be protesting, rallying, holding up some signs. So that'll probably happen 11 noon in almost any town where there's a decent sized public hospital. So keep an eye out for that. But then we're actually going to walk down to the Public Service Association, the PSA, which is the biggest union in the country, 95,000 members. And they're putting on a national thing called Fight Back Together, Maranga Ake, which is on the 1st of May, right? May Day. That's apparently International Workers' Day. And so all around the country. So the thing that's canceled, I think, is, if I am not mistaken, I think it's only the one in Wellington due to atrocious weather predicted. I don't want people to think it's all canceled. Every place else will be doing it. And so we're going to walk it in my town, Whangarei, from the hospital down to the Eyesight Tourist Center on SH1 in Tauriwa Park. It's close by the hospital, and we're going to bring our signs and rally. And we're getting nurses, allied health colleagues, sonographers, families, whānau, patients, whoever wants to come join us from the public is welcome to. And it's not just the doctors. It's going to be all of the public service workers. So the PSA is doing this to raise the profile of austerity impacting our public services, whether, that's teachers, healthcare assistants, nurses, all of it, police, service workers of all kinds, cleaners. They're all under threat by a government that's really done some pretty bad things for workers' rights in general, getting rid of fair pay agreements and making collective bargaining a lot harder. So yeah, this rally will be very broad. And I actually hope and think that it could be the start of a very widespread and active movement to say, enough, you've cut this to the bone. There's no, it's too much. Of course, we just had an announcement 2 nights ago that you guys profiled from Nicola Willis, the finance minister, saying that they're going to cut 1.1 billion or more from the budget. Additionally to all they took 1.4 billion out of healthcare. I don't know how much more you can cut it, but yeah, when you fired 25% of the public health service and 50% of the data and IT department, what is left to cut? The last 3 guys that are trying to prevent hacking. I don't understand it. It's nonsensical. It's very wanton and poorly planned out, but it is what it is. They're going to strip off another 1.1 billion. So I'm sure I'll be back here and what's going on now will seem like a happy memory, the good old days. I'm going to say, remember the good old days, Pat? Yeah. Remember Chewie when it was only a 4.5-hour wait for me to see you?
Yeah, those were the days.
We had it so good. Yeah, those were the days.
Those were the days. Hey, Gary, thanks for your time tonight. And we will catch you 9 o'clock tomorrow night and go over everything you saw and what's been achieved, and probably take some reports from around the country as well. Yep,
sounds great. All right, see you guys. Thank you.
Be well. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your
time.
Mate. So you brought that up, Chewie?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's a list of the events. The big update is, of course, the Wellington one is cancelled. They're going to get hit by some pretty rough
7
weather.
meter swells in the Cook Strait. They're saying 7 meter.
But look, this is important. Not just for the doctors' strike, which again is unprecedented. That doctors, usually because they know how vital that they are, if they do a strike, it's for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
It's rolling strike action. It's just, that sort of thing. This is unprecedented. That is the depth of feeling that they have, that they're standing up for their patients. Now, Simeon Brown wants us to think that they're using their patients somehow as human shields to pad their bank accounts. And we all know that that's bullshit, because you have a choice of who to trust here: doctors or Simeon Brown. Which I'm baffled. Which one do I trust? Do I trust the finance minister that tells us that there just isn't any money on the money tree? We just have to cut. And don't worry, it's not going to affect the front line. It's not going to affect the front line. It's only going to affect the backroom boys, like the people that do the IT services to make sure that your personal information isn't hacked by bad actors, or the ones that maybe remember that you have surgery, rather than, I assume, the new system, which is to write it down on a Post-it note and stick it to a wall somewhere. Hopefully that'll work. Very cheap.
I think I talked about this before. I watched a television program called New Amsterdam. It's about a public hospital in New York. And the episode we watched last, series season 4 or whatever, there was a hack. And I actually was like, oh, okay. And
it's happened before.
The outside hacker got in and basically shut everything down, and people got surgery stopped and A&E stopped, and it all stopped because hackers got in the system. I know it's not real life. The story is not real life, but it has happened before. Yeah, so
it's not CSI or anything like that. This has happened. People have got into DHB IT infrastructure and shut things down.
Yeah,
have locked records. Like, this isn't pie in the sky stuff. It's planning.
Yeah,
it's just as important as making sure the hospital roof doesn't fall in when you're getting your guts pulled out.
Oh, you thinking about Dunedin again? Has Dunedin just popped up into your mind for some reason?
Oh, it's apropos of nothing. It doesn't even have to be Dunedin Hospital. It could be like any one of a half dozen New Zealand hospitals that are in that space. Because back in the day, remember when we think about all these great things of like getting New Zealand back on track and all of that sort of stuff? When we decided, hey, we need to build some world-leading hospitals, we're going to do it all at once. We're just going to go on a spree of building hospitals from the top of the country down to the bottom because we fucking need to, and we're thinking decades ahead of ourselves. Well, guess what? That bill was due in the 2000s.
I'm not sure who we were talking to. I'm not sure whether it was Gary or maybe Aisha Verrill, or I can't remember who, to be fair, but the point was made that the number of the increase in population over the last 5 years requires a new hospital. Not a refurbished or a new hospital replacing the old, but requires a new hospital. So, for example, we all know Dunedin's hospital is getting rebuilt. What they're saying is it would need 2 hospitals in Dunedin, or wherever it is, or a whole brand new, never seen before hospital with the population growth of the last 5 years. And we're struggling to get our current hospitals up to code, and we should have at least one more based on the last 5 years. So, what do we do? Look, anyway, let's get some of these super chats and keep trucking through the night as well. We'll talk about this more tomorrow. That's our MO, isn't it? Let's have a quick chat with Gary, and there's 35 minutes later. I will take surgeons over Simeon any day, says Kiwi Bird. Robbie says, if anyone wants to get involved in advocating for fixing healthcare, you can join the Green Party and join the Green Health Network. We're a recent startup and hoping to get some passionate people.
Well, you've come to the right place, because we've got passionate people in fucking spades.
It's in the ballot says Simeon Brown needs to tell Shortland Street off because their Monday or Tuesday episode this week, Dr. Emmett Whitman put ED into a code black. Okay, I'm not keeping up with the notes. And then some other super chats that have come in. This whole of New Zealand is a landlord's special badge job. Kaimar Tara says, roasting Pat for being as late as that. How late? Were we late? Please. Oh, another person, Ella. I'll pay you late fee. Thanks, man. Okay, so what I hear you saying is the later we are, the more late fees you guys pay on our behalf. Ah, okay. Interesting to know. I'll just remember that.
We've unlocked a whole new economy.
Yeah. Kiwi Bird, please tell me we have some good news, please. Well, the good news is we have people like Gary Payinda who are fighting the good fight for us in a health system that needs it. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with that good news. Chewie. This isn't a particularly long one, but I think it's quite an important one. We have news tonight, that you have to I have to remove your screen first. That's right. That's the change they made. I got it. I got through in the end. We have news tonight that the government is taking voting rights away from all prisoners.
Prisoners are set to lose voting rights in general elections, with the government reinstating a previous ban. Labor's 2020 law change allowing prisoners serving sentences less than 3 years to vote is being reversed. Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith says civic responsibility goes hand in hand with the right to participate in democracy. But Labor says it's sending a signal to prisoners that their voices don't matter.
That was it. That was the whole story on One News. So let's go to stuff.co.nz for 60 seconds with Christopher Luxon. He wants his voters to know he doesn't care about prisoners. I don't care. I don't care, says Mr. Luxon.
Why are you looking at banning prisoner voting?
It makes complete sense. I'm sorry, but this country's built on rights and responsibilities. And if you choose to take the rights but not hold up the responsibilities and find yourself in jail...
This is a really interesting question, right? I don't think New Zealanders do or don't do anything to get their rights. What do the Americans say? An inalienable right, a God-given right. I know what Luxon's doing here. He's being tough on crime. He's talking to his voting base. But everything he's saying is contrary to a human rights, person's individual rights, Bill of Rights. You don't have to act in a certain way to get a right. A right is a right. And he's now describing for us who deserves to get rights and who gives up their rights.
And responsibilities. And if you choose to take the rights but not hold up the responsibilities and find yourself in jail, we are temporarily removing your rights for voting. That's completely reasonable. This is a country about rights and responsibilities. You can't just take one and not have the other.
So you don't think the sentence cap is appropriate?
No. If you're going to jail, you're going to jail for some serious reasons. You've done something that...
I mean, some marijuana users might want to challenge that statement a little bit, certainly in days gone past.
It actually has broken the contract that we have with each other as New Zealanders and with this country. And so we make no apologies about putting the voting ban in place for prisoners.
No, it's
entirely appropriate.
The courts say it isn't justified. Are you trampling on human rights there?
I do not care about what anyone else says about it. I'm just saying to you.
I do not care. Trampling on the human rights of people? I do not care.
Appropriate.
The courts say it isn't justified. Are you trampling on human rights there?
I do not care about what anyone else says about it. I'm just saying to you that as New Zealanders, we have rights and responsibilities to each other. If you want to cause harm and suffering on a fellow New Zealander and you find yourself in prison because of it, that means that you temporarily get the right to vote is withdrawn.
And finally, of course, we had to have the ACT Party come out
bullshit
on Twitter. Breaking! The New Zealand government has agreed to reinstate a total ban on prisoner voting. Remember, these are the guys that have spent the last 2 years yelling from the rooftops, We should all be treated equally under the law. Not once have I ever heard a caveat from these guys that goes, special conditions apply. From the rooftops, we need to all be treated equally under the law. So this would be a hypocritical statement there. Now, let me just say this before all the crunchy croutons come out. You can agree with this statement, right? You can throw a whataboutism at me, but you can't actually debate or challenge the statement that David Seymour has spent the past 2 years trying to convince us all that the thing that he's most important to him is that everyone is treated the same under the law, is that everyone has the same rights under the law. I'm sorry, it's unchallengeable that that statement is the opposite of what they've been saying for the past 2 years, which just goes to show, Chewie, the absolute clown show that it is, the vote-grabbing culture wars clown show that it actually is. Whether you agree or disagree that prisoners should have the vote, if we're going to treat everyone the same under the law, then prisoners get the vote, Mr. Seymour. It's as simple as that. Chewie.
This is just chum. This whole thing is just chum for their base, and it's chum for us. It's going to drive us into a frenzy because it is, of course, a breach of the Bill of Rights. Like, you don't improve democracy by removing people from it. You don't punish people by taking away, you can't tick a box. Like, there's no stats that I'm aware of how many voters are in prison. You know, how many votes cast on election day come from prisons? We just don't know because we've always taken them away from it and it's never given, like, is it enough to swing an election? Fucking no. Is everyone in prison going to vote? Probably not. Like, maybe not even a large proportion. That's not the point. The point is, you can't on one hand go, prison isn't about punishment, it's about rehabilitation, and then turn around and cut them out of society, cut them out of the process. You're talking about people that are, for however long, wholly reliant on the state. And they can't have any say on the shape of the state that keeps them in a box. That to me seems fucked.
Chewie, there's a very old saying, which I'm going to paraphrase, is that you can tell the quality of a society by how they treat their least. In this conversation, the prisoner would be the least. And this government is demonstrating the kind of society they are looking to forming, have already formed, because the way they treat their least is pretty revolting. Now, we can get into another whole conversation now about disability cuts and what's happening with the homeless and people getting kept out of emergency housing, how they treat those least. But this is just another one of the example of the knee on the neck principles that this government wants to follow.
And like, there's a whole other aspect that you can say here as well, is that we know that a certain segment of New Zealand society is unfairly dealt with by our police and judicial system.
Yep.
We know that. Studies been done. Multi-decade studies have been done. Absolutely in stone. That the more melanin you have in your skin, the more likely you are to get arrested in the first place, to have stiffer sentence handed down in court, and you're going to have worse outcomes when you get to prison. So to sit there and they go, well, you know what? We don't even want to hear from them. They don't get a vote. Just let people vote. Like, we're not going to have the Rumataka inmates party suddenly come to power. Nobody's getting their sentences commuted. Like, it's such a baffling issue, and it is just there so Luxon can stand up and then go, I don't care if I'm trampling rights. I don't care about it because they're crims, and crims are bad and need to be punished. That's what this is here for. They've had to pull it out of their emergency supply because Luxon needs to seem tough, because he's failed at every opportunity to be tough while he's been away on his jaunt.
And let me be a bit arrogant and say, let's educate a particular audience out there. When a particular audience out there says there's no such thing as white privilege, or, we're all the same, everyone gets treated the same. Well, what Chewie just hinted at, and I will now show you, is research is clear. Māori get imprisoned at twice the rate of Europeans. But hang on, there's a really important last three words there. For the same crime. Māoris are twice as likely to go to jail than Pākehā when convicted of assault, sparking fresh calls from MPs for a government inquiry into the biased criminal justice system. Ministry of Justice figures reveal in 2015, 26.3% of Māori convicted of assault were imprisoned, compared to less than 13% of Europeans, when both were found guilty of the same crime. So when you all get up in arms, crunchy croutons, about hearing people talking about a white supremacist society or a society based on institutional racism, that's what they're fucking talking about. That and now that leads into a disproportionate number of Māori not being able to vote because they will be in prison disproportionately to honkies who have committed the same crime. Do you get it yet? Is it getting through the thick skull yet? White privilege means Europeans go to jail half the time than Māori do when they commit and are found guilty of the same crime. I guess we're pausing and going on to some super chats.
Just let that hang in the air.
Let that hang out there for a while. David says, today Luxon violated the human rights of people under his care. Interesting way of saying it. Very good. Yep. He should never know peace again, or peace in public again. Rogers says, they literally acquitted a guy today for 20 years wrongful imprisonment. Yeah, that's an interesting story. I was watching that on news thinking, because I'd seen the headline, I was trying to figure it out, but it was they say it was a wrong acquittal, but they're not going to retry the case, because if you think about the issues like David Bain, they then try the case again, and they're not going to. So that means, are they just admitting that they put him in prison for he shouldn't have been? And if he does, how big's the payout? 20 years. 20 years. Hadron, see, I can say this name now, Hadron Collider, because running society according to who's deserving and undeserving instead of basic human rights worked so well for the 19th century libertarians. It's this idea again, and I'll say it again. It's just, the greatness of a society will be measured on how we look after the least. And these guys seem pretty shithouse. I'm not saying that Labor's got it right either, but if you want to compare the two, these ones are particularly bad at treating the least. And the last question, I had this as well, Justin, does it include remand? So what happens if someone's in remand for a week or over a weekend or whatever when there is an election? Are they included? What if someone, I know I have to plead ignorance to knowledge of the prison system. I mean, but I watch a lot of American documentaries and you hear about people getting sentenced to 4 weeks and yada, yada, yada. I don't know if that happens in New Zealand. If that does happen in New Zealand and you're in jail for a couple of months, couple of weeks, I don't know, whatever it is, are you included as well? And Chewie, you kind of said this, and I would just want to echo something that you've again hinted at when you were talking, is that these people en masse will re-enter society. Excluding them from society when they need to re-enter society, I think ultimately will do worse for this so-called fairy tale crime-free New Zealand you're looking for. If you ostracize them more, they will go places to find other ostracized people more, and they will not give you the outcome that you think people should be getting once leaving prison. engaging in community, engaging in society would be a much, much better use of the oxygen you're taking to run your brain when you say those kinds of things, Luxon.
I think just to really hammer this point home like a nail of frozen dog piss into everybody's brain, what you've said is we judge a society by how they treat their least, not a government, not a regime, not a leader, a society. Like that society votes for whatever party it votes for. But when we reward them for this kind of talk, this tough on crime, I don't care about the research, I don't care about the stats, I'm just going with vibes. That's what we're talking about. We can't just lump it on Christopher Luxon or National or ACT or New Zealand First. It lands on all of us because we're not doing enough to push past it. We're not doing enough to call out the media when they just feed it to us wholesale. We're not doing enough when when it comes up in conversation in the staff room. Obviously, because this is what we've got. And the least of society isn't just prisoners.
Yeah.
It is people that are more reliant on the state than the average person. It's the people down in the Oval that are now building shacks out of packing crates to get through another winter here in Dunedin, while we have empty houses and cancelled Kāinga Ora developments. It is our elderly people, which we have just put in a position of being farmed, their life savings being farmed by for-profit organisations running our rest homes. It's the people that are clipping the ticket on farming the children while mum and dad both have to go to work to pay a landlord what he's owed for his 25 property portfolio. Like this, it's not just prisoners. This is just one aspect of what we're fighting against here. All of those vulnerable people, all of those people that would be more reliant on the state than your average middle-income New Zealander of whatever size, shape, colouring you like. Those people, from young to old, the purely innocent to the absolutely damned, that's what we need to judge ourselves on.
Speaking of the absolutely damned, Donald Trump's first 100 days. Let's move.
Oh God, has it only been 100 days?
I know.
What?
We're going to talk about the ferries later on in this, or the ferry. And
what is going on?
Chewie made a joke before he came on here about the 2029. It's only 4 years away, and I was like, yeah, about as long as Donald Trump's going to be in there. It is a long, long time. Donald Trump's first 100 days is up. I was watching a Piers Morgan episode in the last week or so, and they were asking the guy from the Bulwark, Tim, I forget his surname, what are some of the positives that Donald Trump has done in his first 100 days? And he was taking the piss because he said renaming the Gulf of America and disappearing people. I've got 2 interviews that we're going to play now, or clippers from interviews, that I will show you my impressions of Donald Trump and his first 100 days. Here's the first one. This is a photo, that's Donald Trump's hand there, that he's holding up to talk about Abrego Garcia being sent to El Salvador as an MS-13 gangster. Now, I know that many of you have heard this. Chewie's already laughing. I know many of you have already seen this, but just if nothing else, right? Donald Trump's claiming that this is a real tattoo, the MS-13, the thing that looks like it's been made off a typewriter, is not centered on the fingers. Look at that one. Is not interacting with the curved finger at all, right? So this is some evidence, a bit like, remember when he drew the extra bit on the end of that cyclone in Sharpie to say how it was going over a part of the country that he said was going to get hit. But I found this website called it's France 24, and they do a segment called True or Fake, and it's a bit of a is it a hoax kind of thing, and this is what they said about that tattoo.
Well, Yinka, according to the evidence out there, it seems that the MS-13 letters were digitally added onto this photo that Trump is holding, and that the White House also posted. They aren't actually part of Kilmer Abrego Garcia's tattoos. The main proof that is this photo was Photoshopped, being widely shared by users on social media, shared originally on X by El Salvador President Nayib Bukele when Abrego Garcia met with Democratic Senator Van Hollen in the country on April 17th, who traveled to El Salvador in the hopes of aiding his release.
This is called the receipts, by the way.
That we'll take a closer look at, where in the photos you could see the MS-13 figure doesn't appear in Abrego Garcia's
Look at those knuckles,
hand.
Chewie. There's no MS-13 on them.
Are the other symbols, the marijuana leaf, the smiley face, the cross, and the skull. Abrego Garcia's wife has also made a series of posts on TikTok that also capture his tattoos that we've seen on his hand, minus the MS-13 spelled out. So despite this proof,
they're not
there
there.
are the...
So, I mean, look, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but they're not there, which makes this conversation that Donald Trump has with is ABC? It is with ABC. One of my examples of how I would synopsize his first 100 days. We are clear. We can be assured. We have no doubt that those tattoos have been added in post. Now, they did say they were added by the El Salvadorian president, or that was one of the photos that came out. So maybe it's not Trump, but he is so on board. So just remember, right? And this interviewer on the right, I'm not saying it's a softball interview, but he tries so hard to go past it. He's like, let's not talk about that. And Trump won't let him go, oh, okay, I understand, let's leave it and move on. He won't let him. Have a look.
He wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute over that.
Wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles tattooed.
He had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Hey, Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
That was Photoshopped. So let me
That was Photoshopped. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. But I picked you, Terry. But you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
We'll agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop? Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine, sir.
Terry,
I want to get to Ukraine.
No.
Isn't it hilarious how he won't it's like this is called digging your own grave. He's trying to.
That's Melania's job.
Sure, that's true. Actually, he's trying to go past it, and he won't let him.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't
Take a look
there,
at the
but
photograph.
they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in
now.
your picture.
Terry,
Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
It's you do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at
Why
that,
don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and go on to something.
See, he all he wants is to be right. This is the interesting bit. Why don't you just say it? Why don't you just say it? Like how Bezos today was going to include the tariffs on Amazon's charges, and Trump phoned him, and Bezos went, okay, we won't do that anymore. I'm sorry. So we'll just say yes. You have to just say yes. So whether Trump's right or wrong, like in his head, whether he's lying or not, when people don't say yes to his bullshit, he can't let it go. Why don't you just say yes? That's what he's saying. Why don't you just say yes? And then we can move on, even though he's wrong.
Service.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't
sir.
you just say, yes, he does, and, go on to something else.
It's contested.
Amazing. We're going to get to a time interview shortly, too, but you go first, yeah.
So this is something that I've seen mentioned about Trump for a little while. I think it's something to be concerned about, just because, he's president of the United States, most militarily powerful country on the planet. Is he will basically form an opinion based off the last thing shown to him or the last person to speak to him. And here we have a very clear case of he's seen the same photo we saw, and we've just gone, oh, it's had the MS-13 added on. You can see that in images all the time. He's gone, no, that's his actual tattoos. Got it. Locked in. Not an interpretation, not a code. He went back to that same point that he literally had MS-13 tattooed on his hands. The other example I have of this is his impromptu meeting with Zelensky at the Vatican. Now, that was arranged at short notice of just him and Zelensky sitting in the Basilica talking one-on-one. And then on the way back to America, Trump's going, oh, I think Putin's been lying to me. You know, it's the last person to speak to him holds the power.
Yeah.
So everyone around him, everyone in his administration, everyone that's got this man's ear, it is like literally like that scene from Lord of the Rings with fucking Wormtongue whispering in the king's ear. It's that. But in real life, here with a man that can launch nukes.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I said before, he's got form with this, because, you know, we all remember this one from his first term where he had the map of the weather, and because he had said that this place was going to be in the path of it, which it wasn't, he just added it in Sharpie himself. So he's holding up the weather map because just say yes, and we can move on. Just look, weather person, weatherman. Okay, you're not going to say yes to me. Well, we'll make it yes, but I'll put it on myself. I'll just put it on. I'll tell you what I want to do now is I want to read some of this story, because the other that's evidence number one of what I think signifies his first 100 days. The second thing is this Time magazine interview he did. Now, I want to read you this piece here. I'm going to try to read you. I mean, being dyslexic at the best of times, it's not good for me to read publicly, but when you're trying to read Trump, holy crap, it is like speaking Elven, speaking of Lord of the Rings. Okay, so here's a question from the interviewer. Your trade advisor, Peter Navarro, says 90 deals in 90 days. Is it possible? We're now 13 days from that point from when you lifted the discounted reciprocal tariffs. There's 0 deals so far. Why is that? No, there are many deals. I won't try and do the voice, I promise. When are they going to be announced? You have to understand I'm dealing with all the companies, very friendly countries. We're meeting in China. We're doing fine with everybody, but ultimately I've made all the deals. Not one has been announced yet. When are you going to announce them? I've made 200 deals. Now, it's really important to know that America trades with about 190 countries, right? They trade with about 190 countries.
So he's
but
done
apparently
more.
Trump more, and then some. He's done 200 deals. That's what he's done. And then Time says, you've made 200 deals? Trump says 100%. Can you share with whom? Right.
No.
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to read this, but just think of, this does sound like someone who has been hit in the head too many times. Like, I'm not saying that from a joke. It sounds like someone with brain damage, like who's been in a car accident, who has had an injury to their brain and now can't quite function as well as they once did. Because the deal is a deal that I choose. View it differently. We are a department store and we set the price. I meet with the companies and then I set a fair price, what I consider to be a fair price, and they can pay it, or they don't have to pay it. They don't have to do business with the United States, but I set a tariff on countries. Some have been horrible to us. Some have been okay. Nobody's been, it sounds like he's got two, like that devil and angel on his shoulders at the same time. Some have been terrible. Some have been terrible. Some have been okay. Some have been terrible. Some have been okay. Nobody's been great. Nobody's been great. Everybody took advantage of us. What I'm doing is I will, at a certain point in the not too distant future, I will set a fair price of tariffs for different countries. These are countries. Some of them have made hundreds of billions of dollars, and some of them have made just a lot of money. very few of them have made nothing because the United States was being ripped off by almost every country in the world, in the entire world. So I will set a price, and when I set the price, and I will set it fairly according to the statistics and according to everything else. For instance, do they have the VAT system in play? Do they charge us tariffs? How much are they charging us? How much have they been charging us? Many, many different factors, right? How are we being treated by that country? And I will set a tariff, and we are paying for their military. You know, as an example, we have Korea. We pay billions of dollars for the military. Japan, billions for those and others. But that I'm going to keep us a separate item, the paying for military. Germany, we have 50,000 soldiers, and then it drifts off.
What the fuck?
That's the leader of the free world, and the man that I think it's to his left has the briefcase with the nuclear arms codes, and that's and we're not letting our prisoners vote, and that's the man who's the leader of the free world. So they're my two interviews. Well, if you ask me how's Trump gone for the first 100 days, there you go. They're my two symbols that I want to throw out there and say this is how he's done.
Yeah, he's speed running, just completely fucking the US, and it's all under executive order. And if I'm right on this, they're for 90 days, aren't they?
What's for 90 days?
His executive orders.
Oh,
they run for 90 days, and then Congress has to sign them in.
Oh, I'm not entirely sure. I don't know.
So everything that he has done in these 100 days, the reason that they happen so quickly is that they're all under executive order. Now, they need to be challenged or ratified by Congress. And then if he doesn't do that, then it goes to the Supreme Court, which of course is stacked. So who knows where people's loyalties lie there. But this is the ravings of an insane person.
But just so you know, sorry, bro. No, that's not right. In the United States, an executive order, AI hasn't scraped through Google, executive orders can last indefinitely unless they are revoked by a subsequent president or if they are ruled unconstitutional by a court. Some orders might also have a built-in expiration date, while others take effect immediately. Well, and I think that makes more sense, because remember he was saying we're putting the tariffs on hold for 90 days. Maybe that's what you're thinking.
No, I definitely thought that the executive orders had a sunset in them, that Congress or the Senate had to basically ratify them, going, yeah, we're okay with this. Wow, that's worse. That's a whole lot worse. Yeah, that's insane. And I love that we have politicians here that have been looking at MAGA and have been looking at the success of Trump and going, yeah, that's the ticket. I'm looking at you, Winston.
Yeah, but you know what? I guess the problem we have here in New Zealand with MMP is in the countries that seem to be moving to the left. We've just seen it in Canada. You know, word is it's a pretty done thing in Australia, but we'll wait to see. They don't have to think about, well, they only need 6% of the vote. Because, you know, if you're thinking about the Conservatives just lost in Canada, they got more than 6% of the vote. So for those two parties in our electoral, we're kind of going, well, maybe this is a good sign that it's moving towards the left and those guys won't be able to work their Trumpian magic. But the reality is if they make their Trumpian magic, I think the number's about 120,000 people, I think, about that, then they're back. So it's probably not quite the same. Yeah.
I mean, with Trump and just the way that he talks, I mean, I know we've all seen this, but, you know, he's the first person to do this, or he's the one that did it best, or he's made the most money, and everybody's saying it and all of this sort of stuff. But it's got to such remarkable, just not even close to being verifiable. I've made 200 deals. You've made 200
deals.
It's not
possible.
More countries than the US recognizes. Yeah. You've made that many deals.
Or trades with. No, but say what? But you know how he'll double down. If someone says, "But we only trade with 190 countries," he'd go, "Yeah, but some of the countries I did 2 deals with," and then he'll just keep going. You know, I made 2 deals. I made 3 deals with some. Maybe I made 10 deals with one country.
Going back to my earlier point, I think he very well may have made 200 deals, but I think that's people cycling in and out of his office. It's 3 dudes, and they just put on a different hat with a country's name on it, and they go, I'm here to make I'm so sorry, Mr. Trump, I'm here to make a deal. And they've done that 200 times. So he thinks that that's real. Like he's made a deal with the new sovereign nation of Smurgerstan. Doesn't exist. Meanwhile, nobody is telling him that the ports of LA and Seattle are empty.
Yep.
Absolutely empty. I am not kidding you, folks. You could look this up. There are websites that will show you ships in transit and that sort of thing. Those 2 ports, some of the busiest trade ports in the world, empty. Where are all those ships? They're just chilling in China. They're just waiting.
Some commentator I saw today said this is like when COVID kicked in and there were supply side issues and the shelves became empty, and they said, but the difference is during COVID prices didn't go up. The shelves were empty, but the food and that kind of stuff was basically stayed the same price. They're saying they reckon this time the shelves will be empty and there'll be like a 200% premium on the products that are left on the shelves. That's going to be the difference that was predicted by one particular commentator.
So think about the follow-ons from that. All of your port workers, all of your truck drivers, all of your freight handling, all of your warehousing, all of those guys, their jobs are gone. This is unsustainable. Those are not friendly industries that are going to hold on to their workers. They're going to dump people. Those truck drivers in the US, very similar to how they are here, often they're like contractors. They own the truck. That is their job. They'll go into mortgages for those trucks and that sort of thing. If they're not moving, if they're not making money, they're going down the hole. How many of those guys voted for this? Voted for Trump.
Voted for Trump. All right, we're going to keep moving. There's a super chat here from A that says, how can they overturn the Supreme Court ruling? It's been fought in court already. Thank you for your super chat there.
In reference to the prisoners voting.
Yeah, gotcha. Michelle says, so what if he saw a Photoshop picture of himself? Remember all those, what were they called? NRTs? I can't even remember what it seemed such a long time ago.
NFTs. Yeah, NFTs. No, I think he thinks those are real.
Yeah.
This is where he goes, oh yeah, I'm 6'8" and 225 pounds of absolute ripness. That's what he thinks. He's seen that picture.
Let's move. Here we go. News out today. We sort of knew this was happening, but it's been confirmed today that Inter-Islander for the next 4 years, assuming we get ferries in 2029, wait and see about that, are going to be operating only at 66% of their capacity.
Sweet.
Let me just refresh this because it's not going to want to.
The Aratiri is being retired and will stop operating this year, meaning just 2 inter-islander ferries will be crossing the vital Cook Strait route until new ferries arrive in 4 years' time. Abby Wakefield's with us.
Allegedly, Simon. Proposed. Am I right still in saying that no shipyard has been engaged? No price has been given? Proposed in 4 years' time.
Now from Wellington, what's the reason behind today's decision, Abby?
KiwiRail says it would have been too expensive to fix a decaying part of the wharf in Picton.
Oh, so they've got work to do on the ports. You know that reason they cancelled the IREX because they want to spend all that money on fixing up the ports? They've got work to do on the ports now, and there's going to be work for the new ferries. That's strange, eh?
And that Aratiri uses, especially because it would have only have used it up until 2029 when those 2 new ferries arrive.
Allegedly arrive. Allegedly.
The port has also said that it's critical that work starts on that area for the upgrade work to begin. So what does this mean? Well, it means 24 fewer sailings across the Cook Strait per week, and it also means a loss of some roles. Now, KiwiRail has described the Aratiri as a workhorse. It's been in service since about 1999, and it's been a very special workplace to many of the crew that have been on that ship. KiwiRail says, though, it will cope without the aratiri. Here's what they had to say a short time ago.
Going from 3 ferries to 2 ferries will reduce capacity, but we have our 2 largest ferries operating, and as I said, we're engaging with our customers to get the most efficient use and the minimum amount of disruption to them in the transition period until the new ferries arrive.
That story then went on to talk about the weather. That's where I heard the bit about the 7 metre swells in Cook Strait. They've cancelled ferries until Friday afternoon. So they cancelled them from this afternoon for 48 hours. So that's the weather going through there at the minute. So anyway,
if only there was some way that we could illustrate how bad this is. I guess we'll leave it up to the next couple of days.
Leave it up to Mother Nature. That'll be the lesson. So yeah, I just want journalists to use appropriate words, because when they say arriving in 4 years, that's the National Party narrative. And like I said, no shipping yard, no costings, no prices, no schedule, no delivery date. So maybe alleged is the wrong word. Proposed 2029. There's got to be something in there that you guys don't, whatever the right word, instead of whitewash this decision that National's made and back them up. If the media keeps saying for the next 18 months when they arrive in 2029 and they haven't been booked, then you're helping them in their election campaign. Proposed date, alleged date, floated, pardon the pun, date. Be honest. That's all, Joey.
The first of the new IREX ferries was due to arrive end of next year, correct?
Yeah, in about 7 minutes' time. Yeah. Next year.
So, that would have, scheduling wise, been sort of predictable. And, if we'd been able to progress with doing up the ports, then the timing of that would have been fucking bang on.
Yeah. Almost like it was well planned by the previous lot. Hey, like it was all kind of worked out.
Now we've got 4 years of no freight enabled ferry. So 4 years for them to for National to hopefully get to a point where going, see, we don't even really need the trains.
Yeah, that's interesting. Imagine if they don't get something in. Imagine if the system works okay. I think I've told the story 4 times on the show, so I apologise, about a guy I used to work with at ZB who was a newsreader, and the computer system kept failing and corrupting files, and he knew how to fix it, but he refused to fix it, because if he fixed it every night, then management would never pay for it to get fixed properly. Imagine if they figure out a way for the non-rail enabled ferries to do the loading stuff on the trucks, on the boat, off the boat, onto new trains, and it works okay for the next 12 months. Maybe there'll be a change. Maybe they'll go, well, look, they've fixed the problem and it's working just fine. We'll just leave it. Terrifying. We'll keep up to date with that one. Let's go to the last story, and it's Chewie, you brought this one up earlier. Let's have a look at the completely incorrectly named Stephen Rainbow. I'm very angry about this. I'll tell you why. Oh, it's probably obvious to everybody when we get to the end of the story about what this. And I remember we reported on this when it came, and there was like 3 people appointed to new positions here. One of them seemed a pretty good bet, genuine, one of the women, and then the other 2 seemed like pretty revolting pieces of shit, to be perfectly honest, with some of the reports around them. It looks like this particular individual, maybe that was an accurate representation of who he is.
Documents released to One News show the country's chief human rights commissioner claimed the growing Muslim population here poses a threat to the Jewish community. That's led to accusations of Islamophobia.
Human rights commissioner. Human rights commissioner. Just wanted to say that a couple of times.
Against Dr. Stephen Rainbow. He's apologised, but critics want more detail over further claims that he's said to have made about the Afghan community at the same meeting. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
Just a few weeks back.
And I don't want to get into justifying it. I've apologised and that's it. All right? And I want.
Well, that's not it. Sorry, sir. You've apologised for saying that, have you? You've apologised for saying Muslims are a threat to the Jewish community in New Zealand. You apologised for it. Sorry, what was your title again? Human something or other, human rights something or other, yeah. And you've apologized, so that's enough. I don't tend to agree, especially when there seems to be more and more things coming out of the woodwork.
Want to move on?
Our Chief Human Rights Commissioner
Sure you
promising
do
MPs
want to move on.
he'd do better after causing offence in a meeting with a Jewish community leader accused of Islamophobia over comments about the threat Muslims posed to the Jewish community. He disputed many details.
So let's be very clear. I have apologised for any misinterpretation of those comments that I made.
Oh, so he's innocent, Chewie. It's everyone else.
Like, it's very easy to misconstrue what he means by those pesky words that he used.
Yeah, no, and everyone else messed it up. It wasn't him. If only there was like, you know, I don't know, like a record of what he actually said that TVNZ might have gotten their hands on.
Now One News has obtained notes officials took at that meeting of what he did say. They show Dr. Rainbow raised the increase in Muslim immigration as a threat to our Jewish community.
Now, but obviously we misinterpreted that. You know, obviously, you know, I apologize if anyone interpreted me raising the increase in Muslim immigration as a threat to the Jewish community in the wrong sense. Like, you know, if you guys got it wrong, I apologize. These pesky receipts keep coming back, Chewie.
Threat to our Jewish community.
I think it's a deeply Islamophobic comment. I don't think he should be scapegoating an entire community like that. And I think it illustrates that he's deeply unsuitable for that role.
The Chief Human Rights Commissioner should be the defender of minorities. And this...
Sorry, I laugh, because that is the clearest, most accurate description of what the Chief Human Rights Commissioner should be. Yeah.
Statement looks like an Islamophobic attack on one of our most vulnerable communities.
In the latest census, about 1.5% of New Zealanders identified as Islamic. The Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith told One News that he wants the Chief Human Rights Commissioner to be more careful with his comments in the future.
Just be more careful. Be more careful. I'm not going to tell you what you said was wrong. I'm not going to publicly chastise you. I'm going to say, be more careful in the future.
To be more careful with his comments in the future. The Minister recently defended going against advice in appointing Dr. Rainbow to the...
To get that, that's an important point. Mm-hmm. The advice to Goldsmiths was do not appoint this person. So Mr. Goldsmith, just like with Mr. Luxon, you open the door, then you are responsible for what breaks. You were told not to do this guy. You were officially advised not to do this guy. Whatever breaks, Mr. Goldsmith, you own.
Role, saying he thinks he's an effective communicator. Dr. Rainbow.
Well, I kind of agree with that. It was very clear what he communicated, wasn't it? We're not unclear on that. So that was a very effective form of communication.
Rainbow refused to be interviewed for this story. He has pushed back strongly against another allegation that he described New Zealand's Afghan community as anti-Semitic at the same meeting.
I did not say the comments that were attributed to me about that.
The official's notes show Dr. Rainbow did refer to the Afghan community, but aren't specific. One official said they would follow up on his comments.
It appears that there were things said about the Afghan community which were erroneous and inappropriate. We need to know what they were.
We need a proper investigation of what he said.
In a statement received a short time ago, Dr. Rainbow said he stood by his earlier apology and regrets the harm he's caused.
I don't think I've ever heard that. I stand by my statements. I stand by my apology. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. Now,
I just like we're expecting him to go, yeah, I did apologize to take it all back. No.
Here's the thing. This is what I mean. Like, you can be mad for all sorts of reasons about this, but here's the thing: the Muslim community is what he's saying. The increased immigration of the Muslim community are a threat to the Jewish community. Now, I put out a tweet today that said this: "Hey, Stephen Rainbow. Wondering if you can think Muslims are a threat to the Jewish community, what your metric for measuring that would be. Because I've got a metric for how vulnerable the Muslim community is that has tangible threats against them. Can you guess it, Mr. Rainbow? 15th of March, ring any bells? Like, this guy is genuinely saying this community who suffered the worst event of terrorism, of mass murder in this country, like yesterday, those guys are the threat. Those ones that had 51 of their community gunned down in Christchurch, those ones are the threat to the Jewish community. Now, I'm not connecting the Jewish community with the going back the other way, but I'm just saying those guys that were gunned down by a mass murderer, those ones are the threat to the Jewish community. What's your metric, Mr. Rainbow, to make that statement? Chewie.
Yeah, it's fantastic to have the Human Rights Commissioner just very much paint with a very wide brush.
No, white.
There where the threats.
A white brush. You mispronounced white. A white brush. Sorry, I won't interrupt.
I mean, if he wants to talk about threats to the New Zealand Jewish community, talk about the group that's actually attacked, vandalized, threatened. It's white people. Do you know what traditionally the biggest threat to Muslims in New Zealand are? It's white people again. But we can't say that. We can't say that. He might have been making a point, and maybe a smarter, more considered man would have made the smarter point of saying, because of global events, there are frictions between two of the groups that we have in New Zealand society. That would be a more considered comment to make, because the Jewish community might want to attack the Palestinian community and vice versa. You know, that it hasn't happened, but it's certainly something that in levels of government and from the Human Rights Commissioner might be worth mentioning. But no. We'll just put all of the blame, all of the threat on one community. And that's why this guy is not the right person to be the Human Rights Commissioner. And he should resign. He should resign immediately. Yeah. It is an understatement. I can't believe that I'm having to say it. I can't believe that he hasn't quit already. Yeah. But it comes back to, as you said, when he was put up for Human Rights Commissioner, he failed the HR interview.
Official advice.
And Goldsmith and Seymour both wanted him there. There were immediately concerns raised because of articles that he's written and statements that he's made, that he might not be the fair-dealing, even hand that we want in that role. But they go, no, he's our guy. So he's your guy. You fucking own it.
Yep, 100%. You open the door, whatever breaks is on you. And at the moment,
I can't remember the name, but there was another hiring in the same time.
Yeah, there was two women, and there was him. One of the women, I forget as well, seemed to be pretty onto it. We didn't want to tar her with that brush, but the other one certainly wasn't particularly seen as a good hire. You keep chatting, I'll find it, Joey.
Yeah. So yeah, I honestly don't know. But when you look back at the people that we've had as human rights commissioners, has there ever been anything like this come out where someone has just chosen their words, look, give them the benefit of the doubt? Maybe he just garbled his words up. Didn't mean to fucking target an entire segment of our community, but he did. It's never happened before. So yeah, I just want to underline the fact that this guy needs to go.
Yeah, I think I found the story. It'll be in there somewhere. The other two people, but this is the original story. New human rights chief says comments on trans agenda and Israel-Gaza war issue.
Anti-trans as well. Fantastic.
Yeah. I'm just skimming this to see if I can see the other people. comments he made in 2021 urging other gay and queer Aucklanders to think twice before signing a petition to ban conversion therapy attracted criticism. He said the opposition to conversion therapy had been hijacked by the trans agenda. Be careful, there are some elements of the trans agenda being sneakily promoted through this campaign, he said in a post to the Facebook group for Auckland's LGBT community. While many called his comments transphobic, Rainbow denied he was transphobic during an interview with Stuff's Newsable podcast. He said he would protect trans rights as the Chief Human Rights Commissioner. No, I'm not transphobic. And I've been very clear about that fact. I've been very clear that I'm not a racist, and that's the end of the I've been very clear that I'm not transphobic, and that's all the questions you should ask. A real learning for me when I made that post actually several years ago. All those years ago when I was a grown-ass adult and I made that statement.
Yeah.
Anyway. Hurrah! Lucky us.
So
it does feel very Trumpian as well. It feels like these guys are hiring the worst people. You know, I've been watching stuff on RFK Jr. in the last couple of days. You know, cancelling all sorts of... Is that the other one, is it? Unless on all sorts of cancer, and fucking RFK Jr. coming out going, we'll make mistakes. I can't do his voice. We'll make mistakes and then we'll correct them. One of the mistakes was cancelling, cancer research for children. And he's like, oh well, we'll put it back again. It's like, why did you ever take it away? You fucking nonghead.
What about what seems to be the start of a eugenics program, where he's basically compiling a list of people that have autism or ADD, ASD spectrum disorders, and talking about putting them in wellness camps. Like, this is just fucked. But the point that I want to make, because I sometimes see comments about support for, say, the Palestinians coming from the LGBTQ community. And they're like, well, why are you supporting the Muslims? They don't necessarily support you. Here in New Zealand, it seems like they have a common enemy. And that seems to be, for some reason, the Human Rights Commissioner. That seems fucked. That just seems beyond bizarre.
Yeah. Anyway, we could go on forever about this. I'm just looking up that name that you just put up there as well. Can't find very much. Anyway, hey, that's us for tonight. I am going to get along to, I've actually got an appointment between 12 and 1, but I see in Dunedin the protesters between 12:30 and 1:30, so I might try and get there for the second half tomorrow. Get out there and support your doctors and nurses. This is the way we show our support. As Gary said very clearly, doctors have it bad, nurses have it worse, patients have it worst of all. So you may not be in the medical institution, but seeing these guys succeed and what they're trying to do will benefit all of us. So get along and support them if you can. Fightbacktogether.nz if you want to see where those meetings are, fightbacktogether.nz. And Gary will be coming back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, I assume. And obviously we'll have a lot of video footage from the news and stuff to cover off on this this once in a generation event of a 24-hour strike by senior doctors. Is there anything else for tonight, Chewie? Anything in the chat we need to get to, or anything you want to mention? Thanks for the super chat, 6 cents.
Oh, I did see what that was. It was a big red thumb.
Oh, nice. Very good.
So yeah, again, just to reiterate, if you're able to get out at lunchtime, or if you want to take the whole day off, straight with the doctors, do get out and support them. This is important. We know it's important. Doctors, nurses, patients, all of those guys are under the hammer, and Simeon Brown's going to be fine. He doesn't give a single shit. So maybe if he sees some angry faces out there, it might make him reconsider. He saw my
no shits given by Simeon Brown.
He saw my angry face once in Dunedin, and to the best of my knowledge, he's never been back since. I don't know if those two things are related, but they're facts.
aside the temptation to berate. Let's take a note of the corners we stand in. As many points as the hairs on my chinny chin chin. When the news that we're watching is hairy, knowing all the things that we need to be wary of. Like the rich have their hand out for rewards, while the many have to work out what they can afford. And the rest of us ain't paying attention, or maybe have questions we're too worried to mention. Other media is still dwelling on trivial facts, vetting peas from the rice and the mice from the rats, and picking and choosing a warpath to run, linking ourselves with the hill to die on. It's gotta come down to a welcoming vibe, with an A and a self and a higher in mind. All have a lean either this way or that, and will be analyzed by what Chewie and Pat. With the evil in the world trying to mess with your head, and you're sitting on the couch, you're thinking chivalry's dead. Each night, 2 nights, they're gonna sing you to bed. It's big hairy news.
Don't really have too much to say, Chewie, but I was going to talk about, you know, when Gary was talking about how much $2.9 billion is? The other day, just for fun, I wanted to figure out how much 380 billion is, you know, what Musk is supposedly worth. If he spent, lost, or gave away $1 million a day, it would take 1,000 years giving $1 million away a day to get to the end of his money. It's a lot of money. Are you testing my maths?
No, it's just sprung to mind that there's actually a website that you can do. It's called Spend Bill Gates Money.
Oh, okay.
You can just Google that. Like, okay, it's targeted at Bill Gates, but the theme is the same. But there's a bunch of things that you can buy, and you can buy them in multiples and see what effect that has on a rather large sum of money.
I wonder, he might want to sponsor a podcast. That'd
How
work
many
now.
football
I'm
teams
sure
do you want to buy? How
20.
many cruise ships?
Anyway, we're going to go. Thanks, team. Catch you tomorrow night from 9. Hooroo.
Cheers, fam.